Karibuni, asanteni kwa kuwa nasi leo. So I was, so give me one quick second, just making sure that we are running on all the spaces that we are on. Yes, so I was recently chatting with some Kenyans in a Kenyan group that we have, and Kenyans are going through a tough time now with protests and bad leadership that has been in existence since the so-called independence. And this one is bringing memories of the second presidency, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, who was doing a lot of eliminating of Kenyans from this earth. So same thing that's happening now, and retaliating, like seriously retaliating on people who opposed him. Same thing is happening now. And funny enough, let me not go there because that's tribal. Let me not go there. I will not go there because we already have those tribal fires burning. There's no need to add more fuel to them. In fact, we should turn them down. So I will not go there. But as I was talking to this, chatting with a group, I mentioned that, as I do in all Kenyan spaces, that the problem is not Ruto. The problem is not Kenyatta. Yes, there are problems. The main problem is not Jomo Kenyatta. It's not Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. It's not Mwai Kibaki. It's not Uhuru Kenyatta. It's not Ruto. The problem is who creates these individuals, who keeps them going. The problem is the entity, the colonial entity that existed before them, that still remains, that never left. The problem is the imperialist entity that exists today, the United States of America. So much, much bigger than just the Ruto, the Uhuru, the Mwai Kibaki, the Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, and the Jomo Kenyatta. So as I was saying this and talking about white people and what they did to Africans, and asking whether people understood the history that we have with white people, Europeans, this Kenyan African said to me, you need to stop blaming their ancestors. Their ancestors are dead. The white people now have nothing to do with their ancestors. And so I took a deep breath because I'm working on controlling my emotions when people piss me off, especially, and I'm speaking about specifically the field of our survival, our liberation. It's a constant state of being angry, as James Baldwin said to all of us. And so I'm working on reacting and controlling my anger, because it's going to be a constant triggering situation. And without that control of emotion, I might be blinded as to how I need to react best. So I took a deep breath. And I responded to this individual. And on top of telling them that they were wrong, reminded them that the harm, it continues today. The harm did not end with these white folks' ancestors. It continues today. The current white folk continue to oppress and subjugate us today. I keep looking at two different cameras because I'm operating on different spaces. Today we have a TikTok live to promote our account in that space and reach more people. And so I will look at TikTok audience for a while and look at you all. I'm multitasking. And so I thought to myself, instead of going back and forth on this Kenyan group, where we are limited as to how effective we can be on chat, let me put together a broadcast where I'll explain exactly why we need to remember and exactly what the dangers are of forgiving and forgetting, because this person was advising me to forgive and forget, right? The white people today have nothing to do with our suffering. We should focus on the bad leaders we are electing, as if this person is certain that our elections are legitimate and they have no interference, right? Currently, there's a brother who's been doing some investigative journalism on Twitter, and he just put out a post. I don't know how true it is, allegedly, I haven't done the research to back it up, but he claims that there are several candidates currently who are piling up weapons because there's going to be some violence that they will instigate at the time of election in 2027. And this is what happens. And who do you think funds these? You think these people are using their own money to buy weapons, these selfish people? Who do you think is funding this? We know in Rwanda, I haven't even started yet on the topic, and it's 12:11. The time to do this work is just not there. And we need more people doing this work. We need more channels, African grounded channels, Afrocentric channels. In Rwanda, France funded the machetes that ended up killing a lot of Rwandese people in the genocide there. So you have CIA, you have lots of covert entities, not just the CIA, MI5, MI16 is it, and the French ones, of whose names I'm not even going to pretend to know how to pronounce right now. But they exist, and they're doing all this instigating and division and causing of unrest on the continent. But our people don't even see this. Our people don't even see this. When I speak to the elders, I'm so disappointed. I was saying to them the other day back at home, I'm so disappointed when they blame the Gen Zs, the youth who are on the streets, talking about they need to remain sober. I said, the youth are the most sober people right now. You all are drunk with Christianity, drunk with forgiveness, drunk with, oh, we are going to pray. Africans have made me hate praying because praying has become a clutch that they use so that they don't act. And I always ask, and I say this sometimes jokingly, but a lot of times in frustration. You've been praying to this God, and God already answered you with working hands, a brain that can think, a mouth that can talk, eyes that can see, legs that can run, a physical body that can act. You're busy praying and praying and praying. God has already answered you. God has answered you by giving you Gen Zs to tell you what's happening, by giving you children like me who are researching and showing you the proof that there's much more to this issue than just a Ruto. But you're not listening to this God of yours. He is giving you all you keep praying. You've been given the answers. Africans who keep praying. It's just that the answer that God has given you, you don't like, because it means you're going to have to get busy. It means that you're going to have to dirty your hands. It means that you're going to have to do the thing that the white man gospel has told you not to do for a long time. Not turn your cheek, but punch back. Punch back and punch real hard. So let's get into it. This is how this all started. Memory is not just a collection of past events. To go back and remember, it's not just a collection of it. In African traditions, memory is intergenerational wisdom. This was a practice. We didn't write much. Some communities wrote, as you've seen in the Kemetic history, but some communities did not. They had oral memory, oral recording of their culture, and passing it on through generations through oral storytelling and all that. So these memory records carried lessons, warnings, guidings. Like if there's any people who are very good and still are about warnings, is Africans with proverbs, right? So when we forget, we break that continuity of a collective purpose and strength. And this is what is happening. We've become a lost people. So for example, we have in South Africa, and this is where I'm going to start because this is the most painful and it's the most evident official record of forgiving and forgetting that has harmed our communities. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It exposed apartheid-era crimes. However, while groundbreaking in many ways, it made critical mistakes that limited its ability to fully repair the wrongs and harms done to indigenous South African people. To this day, despite the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, most of the land is owned by these white criminals. Criminals, why do I call them criminals? Am I calling them criminals just for the fun of it, to entertain you all? No. They invaded a land that was not theirs. They took it forcefully. They killed Africans in order to take it. They stayed on the land that wasn't theirs. The government came before the people that they call who bought took the land forcefully, and when they had ownership of the land, started selling it to their people, these people who want to claim we bought it. You bought stolen land. So those are criminals. And then on top of that, once they settled, they put up policies that denied South Africans, the indigenous South Africans, the people who existed there before them, their humanity. And so therefore we call them criminals. And these white criminals in South Africa did not give back the land after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So what truth are we reconciling if we're not giving back the land? What truth are we reconciling if we're not eradicating the policies that subjugate and oppress South Africans? What is being reconciled? So this forgiveness that they had in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it prioritized justice or injustice, I'll call it, because it really is injustice over accountability, right? It promoted restorative justice, focusing on truth-telling and forgiveness without holding perpetrators criminally or economically accountable. The funny thing, actually, it's not so funny, it's very aggravating, is that with the white people, with the Europeans, the slave owners, both female and male, and I'm hoping that one of these days we're going to have one of our brothers from the UK join us, Akala, if anyone can reach out to Akala, because we need him on Kumbukeni to talk about this, because I learned about it from him. They got compensated economically. The criminals, the enslavers got compensated. So it's not like these white people do not know what loss is or harm is, right? Because now they're focusing on their economic harm. It's not like they don't understand what reparation means. They do. They just don't want to give it to us. The problem is we've been asking instead of taking it, right? So the consequences of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was that many apartheid criminals walked free after confessing, even for mass murder and torture. Not only did they walk free and emboldened, given nothing to incentivize them from committing those crimes again. They were emboldened because they came in front of the public and said, we did this, I did this, yes, I was involved in doing this, and got to walk away. What do you think that does? And that person continues to stay in your home, in your country, in your motherland, with that mentality, I can do this and walk away free and still be the ruling class in this place. Victims were expected to forgive without receiving justice, compensation, or systemic change. That's what was forced down the throats of South Africans, Black South Africans. By the way, let me make it very clear. I do not consider white people, Indian people, as Africans. I don't. So when I speak of Africans, I speak of melanated Africans. I speak of Africans who have to do the brown paper bag test. That's who I speak of. I do not speak of Indians. I do not speak of white people. They will never be WanaUbuntu. The importance of using that word. They will never be children of Ubuntu. They may reside, they may have been born on that continent and on that land, but they will never be spiritually connected to our ancestry and the ancestry that resided on that land. That's the important part. That is what we need to understand. This is not about Western ways of belonging, immigration, paperwork, passports. No, this is about spiritual belonging, blood belonging. Your people were here and generations have been here. Our blood is in the ground. White people and Indians who invaded, white people and Indians who bought from those who stole our lands will never be Africans, right? And I don't know why I need to sit here and convince you all or defend myself when you accuse me of being racist, why this is the case, that we cannot consider white people and Arabs and, I'm glad I remembered that, and Indians, Africans. We cannot. And therefore, the importance of using the word WanaUbuntu so that we can explain clearly who is a WanaUbuntu and who isn't. So the victims were expected to forget. forgive and forget. And because I am not living in South Africa, and because I'm not South African, I don't have family there, I reached out to a brother to confirm this to me so that I wasn't operating only on assumption or what was online. And I said to him, how do the Africans, our people who I'm not going to be accepting co-hosting, especially from white people, why am I inviting you as a white person to co-host with me on TikTok right now? Let me just make that clear who I am. My name is Nduku. I am the host on Kumbukeni. I am a WanaUbuntu. I do my work to defend, advocate for, and uphold the principle of Ubuntu and our people. I will not be inviting you as a white person to co-host with me this session where we are holding you accountable for the crimes you've committed against our people. So don't even try. Today, I may not be able, I will do my best to control my emotion today, but I may not be able, I may fail at that, but the message will be given. And I asked my brother, how do the Black people in South Africa feel about what happened at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? He said they're very upset about it. They're very disappointed. They feel like nothing was done. They feel like they were used for a show, a shit show. He didn't say shit show, I'm saying shit show. For a performance, he said. Our people feel like they were used for a performance. So when we go around talking about, oh, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it did great things and wonderful things, whose narrative are you repeating? And are you looking on the ground to see exactly what it has done? Are you looking in the ground in the counties in South Africa to see exactly what it has done? Are you seeing the white people going to the White House in the United States claiming that there's a genocide against white people in South Africa? Are we for real? This is what we Africans are going to entertain and indulge in? The nonsensical victimhood of criminals. And so because of that forgiving and forgetting that happened in South Africa is why we have the chaos today, right? Desmond Tutu emphasis on Ubuntu and the fact that he used Ubuntu in such an abusive stage became a tool of appeasement when not balanced with justice. And therefore, the white people took Ubuntu and co-opted it as let's hug and forgive and forget. And Ubuntu was corrupted, but we're taking it back. We're taking it back and we're reminding you that Ubuntu also means that if you're violent against my people, if you're threatening me and my people with death, you will face the same exact violence. That is Ubuntu. I am because you are. My people are because I am. They are because I am. And so we must preserve each other's lives. How do we do that when you're threatening our lives through death? Why is that not logically accepted by all Black people globally as the logical reaction to the threat against us? If we're being shot and killed and hung and fed poisonous food, why are we reacting by turning the other cheek? Why are we reacting by loving the people who do this to us? Why is that logical to us? So no mandatory reparations were imposed on apartheid beneficiaries, right? Victims were given a symbolic one-time payment. Now it's like 4,000 USD. What is anyone going to do with 4,000 US dollars? Land, industries, mines, and capital remained in the hands of a white minority and their multinational partners. The United States, we're talking about, UK. The structure of apartheid capitalism remained intact, continuing the economic oppression of Black South Africans to this day because they forgave and forgot. The commission focused primarily on gross human rights violations like killings rather than addressing the broader system of apartheid as a crime against human everything. The actual physical violence and the policies that were still in place. Because if you address them at the commission, then you will be motivated. You have reason to eradicate them. If you point out that these policies continue the harm on our people, then if we're actually sitting down to repair and bring truth, we're going to say then these policies need to be gotten rid of. But they didn't do that. So that's one problematic effect of forgiving and forgetting. Historical trauma is spiritual and psychological warfare. And for those of you who are studying epigenetics, you know that it carries through generations. So for us, looking from our perspective, we have carried the pain. It is showing up in our mental well-being or lack thereof. It is showing up in how we live in families or how we don't live in families and how our families are breaking up. It is showing up in our very quick response in harming each other as Black people before we harm those who are actually causing us harm. It is showing up in many ways, and therefore to forget. We as a generation, if the generation that came before us decided to forget, we then are allowing ourselves to be in a position where we are seeing symptoms. We don't even know if they're symptoms because they forgot, so we don't remember. The memory has not been handed down to us. We're seeing our community behaving in certain ways. It has been diagnosed that we are behaving in certain ways, but we cannot reach the root of those symptoms, the root of those problems that we are encountering because we forgot our history. But if we remember our history, we can now understand that, yes, this is the cause of why we behave this way. And this is what we can do, beginning with making sure that the cause of why we behave this way never happens again and does not continue. So that's one of the most important reasons to remember our history. But also as a people who are told, and I may be going ahead, as a people who are told that we are inferior, who've been lied to that we're inferior, isn't the most important thing to go back to our history, our civilizations before the invasions of our continent, to remind ourselves that we're not inferior? Isn't that important? Isn't that something very important for this generation and generations to come? To have evidence of who we were so that we can see through evidence that we're not inferior. And so that that evidence can inspire us to eradicate that mindset of inferiority and stand up as a strong people and capable people that we are. If nothing else, if you are all about kumbaya and you have white friends and you don't want to piss them off or lose them because you know you go for happy hour with them and you don't want to miss your happy hour, if that's your life, if that's important, don't you want to remember that you were capable of solving the problems in your community once upon a time? Don't you want to remember that you did not reach at one point in your history? You did not need a white person to tell you how to practice agriculture, to tell you how to build sustainable homes, to tell you how to deal with disease when it showed up in your community. Isn't that something that you think you would need to remember and carry on through generations? So another problem with forgetting what happened to us and what continues to happen to us, because like I started the broadcast, I said, I'm doing this session because a Kenyan was telling me that I'm acting as a victim. By the way, that response never makes sense to me. When you all come to me and others who are remembering what happened to us and holding white people accountable and tell us we're acting like victims, it's become so ridiculous, like I don't even know if it's worth responding to. How am I acting as a victim if I'm saying, I know you did me wrong and I'm about to do you a number right now? I'm about to get even with you. How is that me acting as a victim? A victim is the person who decides, oh, wait a minute, you enslaved us? Oh, that was not you. It was your ancestors. Oh, wait a minute, you colonized us? Oh, that was not you. It was your ancestors. Because I'm sitting here having a drink with you and you're telling me I'm a cool brother and you like my music and I can hear you singing my music, right? So it's not you, it's your ancestors. So I'll forgive you, right? That's where our Black people want to be. That's victimhood. That is, figure out a way we are going to describe. That is a victim. A person who accepts harm done to them and goes along like everything is okay is a victim, because they allow that harm to continue throughout generations. Therefore, you're a victim. A person who understands and finds out and digs to find out the harm that was done to them, and decides that they're going to hold those people accountable and repair, while holding those people accountable, repair on their own the harm that was done, build structures that advocate for themselves, and make sure that they put together policies and defense mechanisms so that it never happens again. That is the furthest thing from victimhood. Change their education system, because through going back, they realize, oh, wait a minute, we had this education system at one point. Oh, and through this was not our way of educating. The one we have today was not our way of educating back then. What has it done? Let's look around us. What is it doing? How did we behave under that system of education that we had before? What did we do? We innovated. We built structures. We had agricultural practices that were able to counter nature's challenges. We had ways of resolving issues amongst ourselves. We had ways of building unity. Where do you all think Ubuntu, Kiswahili, came from? Kiswahili comes from the Bantu people meeting in the East African region and Central African region and realizing that they need to work together, and therefore, through the many languages they spoke, building a new language. We did that before the Arabs even touched the soil on our motherland. Before they even smelt it, we did that. So to remember that is so important, because then you remember that you're capable and you see the evidence of how well you are operating, and then juxtapose it to the education that we have today. And you look at the evidence of what it's doing to our community. And as a logical, intelligent, Black African person, you decide we must get rid of this miseducation that is Western, and we must get the one that we had before and update it to meet the needs today. It has to be African grounded. If nothing else, remember, for that reason. So, because we've decided to forgive and forget, we have allowed neocolonialism to dig its roots in our motherland. The IMF, the World Bank, and the NGOs, they operate as modern colonizers. But because we have agreed unofficially as a collective to forgive and forget, we see them as aid agents, right? And despite the evidence that they have been with us for decades, giving the so-called aid, but our economies have never improved. In fact, our economies have gotten worse. Our health systems have never improved. They've gotten worse. Diseases that we never even could think of on the continent are there. The killing amongst our people, the constant fighting has gotten worse since these entities were introduced in our motherland and amongst ourselves. I speak of Haiti too. I speak of Brazil too. All the geographical locations where Black people are the predominant people. I speak of those too. And this condition is happening in all those places, within the continent and outside the continent. We now have the language of oppression that we don't even realize is the language of oppression. Aid, partnership, development, disguised domination, coming in the name of aid, partnership, development. If indeed the United States has a great partnership with Kenya, why is Kenya not progressive? Why does Kenya not have subways? Why does Kenya not have great roads that you can get from one place to in 15 minutes, highways? If the UK, I'm not even going to use the health system with the US, because their health system is not right. So if the United Kingdom has a great partnership with Kenya, why do we not have a great health system to equal the one in the UK? It's a partnership. When I do business with someone as a partner, we're making sure that we both benefit from that business. We're both getting equal benefits. Why are we not seeing that if indeed these people are partners? And if they have been giving us aid all these years, why does it not reflect in the way we live today? Why is it that the youth are on the street talking about we can't get jobs? Why is it that a lot of us, as evident from my own life, are abroad seeking economic liberation? Right? So that becomes the problem. When you forgive and forget, they will come to you and you will not see them as the enemy. You will see them as a friend, as a partner. because you don't remember what they did to you a few decades ago. You don't remember, you're not even paying attention to what they're doing to you right now. To you, it's not them, it's the puppets that they have put in place that are doing it. You don't even see them behind the stage controlling, above the stage controlling the puppets. Because to you, you have forgiven and forgotten. It's not them, it's their ancestors. So that's, for me, is frustrating, because I say this all the time. Black people are the reason we're not liberated. We are the reason we're not liberated. Because of things like this, forget and forgive and forget. So we have, for example, in the West, right, in Western Africa, France still controls the currency of 14 African countries. I don't know if that has updated now that we have the Sahel union between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Through the CFA franc, and African former colonies deposit their reserves in France's central bank. Like, I don't even think you need history sometimes to ask yourself, why am I making money and depositing it in my friend's bank account? Why am I going for a job every day, showing up, going through the micro aggressions that white people put us through when we're in these workplaces, getting my check, and then taking my check and depositing it in Tom, in Harry's account? Why? Why do we not look at the micro, compare it to the macro, and say this thing doesn't make sense? And then when someone like Traore decides, and by the way, military might is needed to take down such an oppressive system. And so this villainizing of a military leader, oh no, we need military leaders to take down oppressive systems. That is what is needed, military action. And therefore, someone like that, with the support of the people, decides we need to tear down this system because there's evidence that it doesn't help us. No, the rest of us are busy allowing the IMF and the World Bank to control us. The rest of us are busy allowing France to tell us that we need to deposit our checks at the end of the month into France, the France's central bank. It's ridiculous. In Kenya, so because we have allowed this, we've allowed the practice of debt slavery. If you don't think that the debt situation we have today is enslavement, think again, because you can't get out of it. We cannot get out of it. It's a cycle of debt that we will never be able to get out of it. And they knew that when they lent us the money from the beginning. The Kenyan government, and this applies to many African countries, because they allowed IMF loans, because they didn't see those the IMF and the World Bank as enemies, because they didn't reach back to understand. I mean, I keep catching myself when I say reaching back, because you don't even need to reach back, because the history is so recent. Kenya got independence in 1963. It is so recent. Like the generations. On top of, I mean, this has to do with betrayal. This is, let's just rewind. This is not, at one point, it has to do with our own people betraying us for selfish reasons and saying, okay, we, because we are benefiting as individuals, are going to forgive and forget as long as you keep paying us. We will make sure that the masses of African people do not remember what happened between you and us, as long as you keep paying us and our families. We will make sure that we take your education system and we do not teach exactly what happened on these lands, as long as you keep paying me and my family. We will make sure that you continue to do business on our lands, as long as you keep paying me and my family. That's actually what happened. And a lot of the people who are saying forgive and forget are tied up, woven into the Western capitalist system. And therefore, for them, it is against their own interest to remember. Because remembering that white people have done you harm forces you to reconcile the fact that you're working with them. You're working for them to continue this harm. And you as a Black person do not want to do that. A lot of us do not want to do that, because that means holding yourself accountable. So this whole thing of Nduku, why do you keep doing this? Their ancestors are the ones who did this. Forgive and forget, you're racist. Is betrayal. Is betrayal by those who ask me those questions. Let's just come down to what it really is. This is betrayal. Desmond Tutu and Mandela, for whatever reasons, betrayed the South African people. They betrayed them. Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Arap Moi, who came after him, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Ruto have betrayed Kenyan people. It's as simple as that. It really is as simple as that. It's a betrayal. Any black person, especially when they know the history, and we know that Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta grew up with his father, and Ruto have a good understanding of colonialism and what happened in Kenya. They have a good understanding of what happened to the Kenya Land and Freedom Army. So no one needs to remind them what happened. And even worse, they have a good understanding of how great the land used to be before the invasion. So it's not a matter of they don't know. They know, but they have chosen to betray us for their own selfish interest. Now, the masses who have been under the miseducation system of the West now have forgotten what happened, don't know what happened. If you go to Kenyan people, I am certain there are many, many places in Kenya where they don't even know about the slave trade. Funny enough, so that you understand that African people, it's not a matter of forgetting. It's a matter of choosing to turn a blind eye, Christianity, religion, all a religion, Islam as well, all religion, right? Because you're told Allah needs you to behave in a certain way, God needs you to behave in a certain way, violence is not the way, pray, pray, pray. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to step back. Islam is very good about holding those who do harm to the community accountable. Very good about that. That is one thing I must respect about them. You will be held accountable if you harm them. And it is in Muhammad's writings that they defended themselves. Christians are the only ones who are about turning the left cheek and whatever other cheek that you have to turn, as if you have the luxury to expose parts of your body to violence. Right? So it shows up, and you see these NGOs coming and you see them as good people because you don't remember. You haven't taught in your schools how they operated back then, how they came into being. That's history, right? So if you sit down and understand the Berlin Conference, if that is taught in Kenyan schools, South African schools, you're going to sit and ask yourself as a student, you will raise your hand up and ask the teacher, why were Africans not at that meeting? And if Africans were not at that meeting, why do we acknowledge anything that was a result of that meeting? Why do we even give it any credence? Huh? So that's what that child will do. If the child was taught about the Berlin Conference, they were told Germany was there, the United States was there as standing on the side of the war. The UK was there, France was there, Portugal was there, Spain was there, and they decided that they had all fallen on this land and they were fighting each other. They needed to resolve those issues by dividing the land so that they would have certain rules and policies to avoid from fighting each other and manage the business that they were doing on that land. The African would be like, oh, did we agree? What was our role in that? Did we actually agree? Did they ask us if it was okay to break up our lands? How did they break them? Please give me an example. That child in that classroom would ask that. If in our education system it was taught, what's it called? The Bretton Woods Conference, where the IMF and the World Bank are formed, how it happened, where it happened, who was involved. That child would ask, wait a minute, Africans were not there again? Then who were these financial institutions built to help? If it was global and we are not there, who then were they built to help? And by that question, and if the teacher is grounded on teaching in an Afrocentric way, they would answer accordingly. They weren't built to help us. And therefore, when that child grows to be the leader who is faced by the IMF, who is faced by the USAID, the NGOs, and this is what happens to Sankara, to Lumumba, and all these people, because they go back and learn our history. When that child gets up and becomes an adult, they will know exactly who the IMF is when they come to sit with them at the table. They will know that this is the enemy, and this entity was not formed for me. I was not at the table when they were formed. That's the importance of history, so that you're able to manage today, your affairs today. Without knowing what happened yesterday, you cannot manage today. Wake up today, I have a big scar on my leg. How the hell did I get my scar? Oh no, forgive and forget, Nduku. Everything is fine. Forgive it. Go take care of your scar. Forget how it happened yesterday. How then do I prevent that scar from happening tomorrow? If I forget what happened yesterday that caused that scar, how do I stop it from happening? Why the hell are we going to the doctors to find out what's wrong with us? And especially the Africans who are saying forgive and forget. If our motto, if our principle that we are embracing is forgive and forget, why the hell are you going to the doctor to understand what is going on with you? Just stay home, forgive and forget, and take care of yourself. Why go for diagnosis? Oh, doctor, what has happened to me? What got into my body 2 days ago or a year ago that is making me feel this way? That is remembering. That is history. I'm giving these ridiculous examples and analogies so that you can see how ridiculous it is to claim that we should forget the ma'afa that has been carried out against us as a people. And that to remember is to be hateful. So what? Why should I not hate that who has harmed me? Why is it such a radical idea that I should hate the people who kill my people? Why on earth is that not the logical response? Why? So, the psychological warfare of white saviorism and global propaganda, right? Because we have allowed them now to seem as good people because we've forgotten and forgiven. And therefore, we don't see them operating as enemies, as who they truly are, because they did a major harm to us. So we don't remember that harm. And therefore, to us, they're good people. It allows Western media to put out the propaganda that they too put out, that we are very quick to believe. Like I said, I've been talking to elders this week about the protests in Kenya, and they're blaming the Gen Z and saying, oh, Ruto, they're not putting the blame on Ruto, right? They're not blaming the CIA who's paying certain goons. They're not understanding that this is a non-violent protest, but the entities that want it to be discredited are paying certain individuals to cause violence, so that it seems like the group, the Gen Zs, are the ones causing violence. Our people are nowhere close to that mindset of critically analyzing anything like that. Nowhere close. Our elders are nowhere close to us. And therefore, it frustrates me because we continue this miseducation system. And unfortunately, a lot of our elders did not go through the education system. But the importance of teaching history to show that you do have covert entities in your country that pay for the violence that is happening in your country, so that you can understand, no, it's not the Gen Zs. When you understand what happened during colonialism, how the colonialists paid certain tribes, promoted certain tribes, favored certain tribes so that they would be violent, they would fight against the Kenya Land and Freedom Army. When you understand that, then you can understand that this is a behavior, an innate behavior of the colonialists, the Western entities, to instigate violence and unrest in our motherland so that they can continue what they do to oppress us and subjugate us. You would understand that. You wouldn't be blaming the Gen Z. You would have that capability to think critically. But no, Christianity has come in and told us to forgive and forget. We have allowed the burning of our clothes, our languages, our spiritual ways, because we have forgiven and forgotten. We have forgiven. We have forgotten that once upon a time, we actually are the ones who manufactured cloth, fabric, and made clothes, right? And even under enslavement, we are the ones who did that work on the farms, in the rooms where we processed, we helped. We did the work of processing all this to produce this. It wasn't the white man. Understanding that stops us from looking up to the white man for solutions. But forgetting that will always have you looking up, because the only evidence you see is what white people are doing today. You don't see that once upon a time it was you who did that. And in fact, they came to you to ask you, hey, how do you do this? Right? The white people who settled in the Americas needed the enslaved people to tell them how to do agriculture because they were not able to do. And indigenous people, or what is also known as Native Americans, taught, and some enslaved Africans taught the white man how to do agriculture. How will you know that if you don't go back to learn your history? How will you know that, especially today, if what they're telling you is that they are the ones who are innovating? They are the ones on. I get mad because with the limited resources right now online, I sit down and watch the art of making cob houses, because that is my goal, to build cob houses, moving away from toxic construction. And most of those videos are done by white people. And I was saying the other day, this is one of the worst crimes as far as appropriation goes, because these white folk need to, before they do their video or after they do the video, to give credit to where that practice of building was gotten from. So I'm a white person. We do this video of cob, making cob. But for those of you who don't know what cob is, it's a building material made of mud, sand, and fiber. So like hay and stuff like that. And you mix it all together to build. It's a natural way. It helps with temperature control in your home. It reduces toxics in your homes and all that. A lot of us are going back to that way of African building. But you as a white person should give credit to where you get that from, where it originates from. But we as Black people, of whose responsibility it is to remember our ways, if we don't remember that that's how we built, how are we to know that that white person is taking what we had, is appropriating? How are we to hold them accountable? We're going to go along and say, oh, these white people have great ways of building. Oh, look at this, these white people, they're very ingenious. They have great ways of building. No, they took them from your ancestors. And the only way for you to know that is through history. So good luck with your forgive and forget. Because of forgive and forget is why we have what is going on in Congo happening today and continuing, because we have decided to forgive and forget. But even worse than forgive and forget, we have detached ourselves from Congo's fate, moved away from our way of Ubuntu, understanding that the well-being of Congo is my well-being. The downfall of Congo is my downfall as a Kenyan. There is unrest in our community until Congo is rest. It has rest. Until Congo has peace. There will be no peace in our community until Congo has peace. We don't understand that. We don't understand why Congo is the way it is. Why is Congo the way it is? What entities have come to create? What happened in the past? We don't understand that Lumumba was elected as the president. What happened after he said his speech? What did the Belgians do? Who did they call in? That they called in the US and the UN and the Peace Corps, who broke up that unity in Congo that was starting to build, who fueled the fires of disruption, right? That performed the coup against Lumumba, who was a good leader, and helped in killing him. If you don't go back in history, you don't understand that this is the beginning of the disruption in Congo. If you don't go back to history, you don't understand why are there so many Congolese people who have no arms? Why are my grandmothers and grandfathers, why do we see many of them with arms cut, limbs cut? What is wrong with us? What happened? And you don't understand that this is carrying on in generations ahead. You're not going to understand who took my grandmother's arm away. Huh? Who took my grandfather's leg, foot away? because you're not going back in history and understanding that Belgium invaded your land. And by the way, this is the reason why you allow in Namibia, in South Africa, in Congo, in Kenya, you drive by Delamere's land as if Delamere is an African, and you sit and call Delamere an African because you have forgotten how Delamere got to your land. If you remember that Delamere's people invaded your land, the Delamere's people brought disease to your land so that they could claim it was not inhabited. Because what they did, these white people, they brought disease, it killed the people, it killed the animals. Oh, this land is not inhabited. When they bring now the ones who are going to be paying for it. When the British government comes and invades, kills black Kenyans, and then they call, whichever way they communicated, their British citizens in South Africa who are fighting the Boers. Oh, guess what, our British farmers? You don't have to endure this war with the Boers anymore. We have another land that we have conquered. That's how they call it. Come, you can buy at pennies the land and start business. If you as a Kenyan are not going back to that history, you don't understand how that land was acquired. And it's a problem. It's a huge problem. So these are just a few of the many reasons why we need to remember what happened to us. And please let me go back to our broadcast on our regular channels. Uhuru Shakara, Uhuru leo na milele, Uhuru today and forever, and we must pursue it. Ask the questions you want to ask. Add into the conversation. What do you think? How many of you have encountered this response from our people? Forgive and forget. You're being racist. Why do you need to always bring up this fact of white people, white people, white people? It was their ancestors. Why are you being a victim? This is victimhood. How many of you have encountered this response? And how many of you face the same frustration with me about this response that we are victims when we know very well it's not victimhood? What questions do you have about this topic? Right? Please put them in the chat so that we can expand on this conversation. I'm going to go further into my notes to see what I have missed. Yeah, if we, and I kind of mentioned this in passing, if we forget that we had an African education system, that we spoke our languages, if we forget that Nyerere was able to hold on to Kiubuntu, Kiswahili, in Tanzania, and the Tanzanians were able to do everything, math, chemistry, all the sciences, even while using that language, not using English. If we forget this, how are we then to empower ourselves to continue upholding our African languages? We will continue upholding English because we will believe the lie that English is the only innovative language. It's the only language that allows for innovation and science learning. We will have no evidence in our story in life that Kiubuntu, Kiswahili has been used to do the same things that English does. And sometimes even better because those students are learning from their own mother tongue and are inspired to think critically because they're not using a foreign language, something that is foreign to them. Also, if we don't learn the history of Kiubuntu, Kiswahili, how are we to know that it existed before the Arab landed on our continent? Which is why I have many Africans, and during the International African Arts Festival in New York recently, at least 3 people I had to talk to tell that Kiubuntu is an African, a Bantu language, not Arabic. And because we don't go further to learn history, Robin Walker, a brother in the UK who's done the research, I'm forgetting his book now. So Shakara, if you're still there, please put that name in the chat, in the comments, so that I can talk about the book, at least give the title. But he has done the research and recorded it. Chancellor Williams has done the research and recorded it. If we don't go back to read those history books, how are we to know that Kiubuntu existed before the Arabs came to the continent, and that the Arab that you see, the Arabic you see in Kiubuntu is an infection? I call it an infection because it did not come in a friendly way. The Bantu people who came together in a friendly way sat together looked at their commonalities in their languages and built one language of unity. That was not an influence, it was an influence, how their languages influenced this new language of unity. The Arabs invaded our land. They killed our ancestors. They forced down a religion that wasn't ours down our throats. They villainized our religion. They villainized our way of being. Why would I not call that an infection on our language of unity? Why? I have no idea why this is happening. Oh, hold on. This is called multitasking, yo. There we go. So, in order for us to understand that Ubuntu Swahili is a language of our people, is a Bantu language, we have to go and remember, how was it put together? What happened when this language was put together? Who was there? Were the Arabs even there? No. And Mama Kanyisile, and we're still working on that book for those of you who have contributed towards that book. That book, it's going to take longer than we thought because we have to use means of publication and production that are going to take time because we don't have the funds that we thought we could raise, right? That we hoped to raise. So because of limited funds, it's going to take longer. But once the book is out, you will see that she has done a chronological record of what happened on the continent before the invasions. And Ubuntu existed before the Arabs came to our continent. Robin Walker, like I said, has put down that evidence for us all to see. How do we see that? Through reclaiming our education system, making it Afrocentric, using our African brothers and sisters as the books, our authors, as the books that are being taught. Those that are remembering the true history of our people as the books that are being taught, not the white man's lies, not the white man's propaganda. That's how we remember that. How do we remember that? There's an African who was able to become a leader of a nation and was able to change his country in 4 years, Thomas Sankara, from an illiterate people to an educated people, from an underdeveloped nation to a developed nation, from a nation that had no agriculture to a green belt. If we don't go back and learn about Thomas Sankara, how are we supposed to get that evidence? How are we supposed to get the evidence that Nkrumah was able to economically build Ghana? And there's evidence they were doing manufacturing in Ghana if we don't go back to remember our history. How are we to understand how that leader was taken down? And how are we to prevent from other leaders being taken down in the same way if we don't understand how that happened then? If we don't learn our history and who was involved, so that we know who the enemies are, and so that we act accordingly and hold those enemies accountable. So it is insane for any African to suggest that we should forgive and forget, and that the evil that white people have done to us ended with their ancestors while it continues today. Like Kenyans, by the way, and Africans who are not facing immediate bombing and killing of your people. Please, I don't even know how to say this, like, stop living in your selfish, individualistic mindsets. Because just down the street in Congo is a constant bombing. So how you can, with a straight face and want me to respect you, claim that what white people did is in the past, it died with their ancestors while Congo is happening, while more than like tens of African channels are telling you exactly who is responsible in Congo, the multinational companies, the Western companies, the Chinese companies, and you want to say that it died with their ancestors? Like, what are you smoking, Black people? What are you smoking, African people? Like, don't even pass it on to me, because I don't want to face the same fate you're facing. I was there before and I healed myself. I do not want to go back to that. The disease is gone. I am not turning back and acting like I don't see what is truly happening and who is actually my enemy. So quickly touching on Ubuntu, right? Because it has been co-opted, like we said, with South Africa. Sorry, I'm sitting under the sun sweating. So little discomfort. Ubuntu is not naivety, right? Ubuntu does not mean like the naivety of forgive and forget. That's not Ubuntu. And any African who's embracing Ubuntu in that way, including Desmond Tutu, needs to be slapped in the face. They are an enemy. Okay? They are an enemy because they're not allowing the truth to be told. And through it, they're harming the community. Ubuntu doesn't mean letting oppressors go unchallenged. It means honoring the human spirit, our human spirit first. WanaUbuntu first. It means healing through justice, our justice system, not their justice system, and togetherness, not forgetting or forgiving oppressors who continue to exploit us. It means entering the community's survival, centering the community's survival and well-being. Western culture has co-opted this principle, focusing on the phrase, I am because you are, and never explaining the deeper meaning of this phrase. And they have gotten help from people like Desmond Tutu, right? If you were, what was Desmond Tutu suffering from? Christianity. And what is Christianity? Essentially Western culture. And therefore you can see why he falls victim to this, because he doesn't remember his African spirituality, of which Ubuntu is a very central principle, and exactly how it is to be practiced. He doesn't remember the Zulu warriors who went into the fields to fight and knew they must, despite the fact that they understood that taking life was a big responsibility and frowned upon. But they knew that they had to protect their people, Ubuntu. But before they came back into their people, because life-taking was forbidden, they had to cleanse their spirits through African spirituality so that they didn't bring that evil into the community. Ubuntu. If you are not, because I am because you are, and you are because I am. If you are not, literally, if you are dead, then me and the rest of the community will be affected by death, by your death. Now take this, right, and take it to the macro level and picture the large numbers of Africans being killed everywhere, in Haiti, in Congo, in Sudan, in North Africa, wherever it may be that we have terrorists. To uphold capitalism and imperialism, this is why this is happening, for business. It's as simple as that. How then do African people sustain the well-being of their faith that we are faced with? How do we recognize this as a threat if we decide that Ubuntu is just, I am because you are, forgive and forget? So what is the only logical and human response that you have to a situation where you're faced with violence, where you know you need to preserve your people because their existence is your well-being? You have to remove the threat, forcefully remove the threat, because the threat will not go willingly. It most definitely isn't turning the other cheek. So, and then if you claim that you want to forgive and forget, so you're not going to remember the ancestors who fought and died for our survival. You literally would not be able to buy your current Range Rover, go to a restaurant, travel internationally, if not for what our ancestors did to make sure that you got those freedoms. And you, as someone who enjoys those freedoms, is shamelessly saying that we should forget what happened. We should forgive and forget. Revenge, we're not even looking at it as revenge. It is repair. In order to repair something, you have to take away the thing that is making it broken and put it back together and seal it so that the thing, let's talk about rust, for example. There's a metal stool and I need to repair that metal stool. I have to scrape the rust from it, scrape all of it, and then reseal that metal to make sure that it never gets rust again. Learn what element we used before that allowed for rust to get to that stool. Make sure that the element we use to seal it today is not the same one. It is a stronger element that is going to prevent the stool from getting rusty. That is literally what it should be. That is what we're talking about. That is the page that we all need to be on as Black people, as African people, globally. Not forgive and forget. You forgive and forget, you'll have no stool. The stool will be destroyed by the rust. That is literally what is happening by our people. We forgive and forget, we'll have no Africans. We will be a minority soon, an endangered species, since white people like to use that term. And this is what you're promoting. So let me see if I can go down to my notes, because we've been here for how long? A little over an hour. Like I said, so going over to abroad to the United States, because of forgiving and forgetting, we allow for the same type of exploitation coming in a different name or a different face, mass incarceration in the US. You don't even realize that the 13th Amendment has been put in place to allow for the continued enslavement of your people, because the 13th Amendment has a clause that says that slavery is done except for, but for, when you're imprisoned. And then when you have a situation like that, and policies that ensure that your people are the ones who are going to end up in prison, come on, y'all. If you don't sit and learn how that system is put in place and how it works through history, how are you supposed to hold that system accountable? We have economic underdevelopment in Africa through the IMF, like I said, World Bank, and foreign controlled corporations. We have anti-blackness in Arab and South Asian cultures. You're not going to understand why are the Chinese people not liking me? Why in Kenya you see it in the Arab stores, how they talk to us? Why do they talk to us like this? Why do they talk to white people like that? Why do we as Africans, why do we run to attend to the white person when our brother is sitting at the table and they got there before the white person? What is wrong with us? You have to go back to history to understand what is you're suffering from, what you've been infected by. Who caused that infection in you that allows you to see whiteness, as much as it is so distant from who we are, as superior to you? I'm sitting here under the sun. If I was a white person right now, I'd be red, and moving to another place because I am burning. How am I inferior? I'm able to withstand the sun. How am I inferior? Because of the melanin in my skin. How is that inferiority? The simplest of things, as your skin color, showing your superiority. Actually, in that case, superiority. And you are, as a people, are going to sit back and believe that, come on, y'all. I will say this. The oppression and subjugation of our people continues, yes, because we've chosen to forgive and forget and turn a blind eye, but also because we have not created enough fear, enough incentive in white European people and others who harm us for them to be deterred from even thinking of harming us. This is why it continues. We have allowed them to control the dominant narratives, portraying themselves as civilizers, developers, or partners, while Africans are labeled backward or in need of help. You as Africans have not held them accountable for this. You've not banned their books in your schools. That's one way to hold them accountable. You still allow their books to be taught, these lies to be taught in your schools, and therefore they have no incentive to stop them from telling the lies. They control institutions of power, military, economic, media, education, and international law. Like when you have bases, military bases in the continent, it is because you have forgotten what the British did in your country, that they brought bombers, aircraft bombers, that they destroyed your beautiful country, and they continue to do that through their bases. Because you forget that is why you continue to allow. So here is independence, how it should happen, and why the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, despite the so-called independence celebrations, went back into the forest to continue their fight for freedom and land, and were killed by Jomo Kenyatta's government. So here is what should have happened. On that day that we claim that Kenya is independent, we should have sent back all white people. We should have taken back all Kenyan land. We should have ensured that the education system that was taught by the British was annihilated, eradicated, completely done away with, and put in place an African-grounded education system. We should have made sure that all military bases, all military entities, all spaces where they were closed, shut down, burned if necessary, and that they were sent home packing. That's independence. But we didn't do that. And not only did we not do that, we decided to take on an education system, this education system that was going to have us forget that. And then we decided to take on a constitution that they constructed, not us. They constructed because they had to sign a signature of approval on our constitution. And so I don't know of any independent African nation today, except maybe of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, who have recently acquired their independence. Right? As long as they are operating from a point of we're the ones calling shots as they interact with Russia and China, because I know they are dealing with those partnerships. As long as they're not sitting and being told by Russia what to do, they're actually the ones in the front of the table controlling how the conversation is going. They have independence, and that's what independence means. Whew. Let me see what else I've forgotten. Thank you all for bearing with me, listening. I hope you can all join me in squashing this nonsense of people telling us when we remember and when we keep teaching about what white people have done and what they continue to do, and exactly the fact that they are our enemy, that we are being victims and that we're promoting victimhood, squashing that nonsense. Join me in squashing that nonsense. Join me in calling out these so-called Africans who are putting out the nonsense. Join me in make it unpopular to even utter the words, to even think them. Anyone who suggests we forget our history, make sure they are seen as an enemy. Like, let that be the trend. Since we've become such a trendy people, let that be the trend. Let the trend be that we are going to be so gung-ho about our history and making sure that it's done right and done consistently and done often. Let that be the trend. Let them call us hoteps and whatever else they want to call us, because we are so committed to ensuring that what happened to us and what continues happening to us is never forgotten by any generation. And here comes the biggest of slaps that you've ever slapped an African person by suggesting this. Why then are you as an African sitting and indulging and supporting the commemoration of the yearly and daily commemoration of the Holocaust? Why does that make sense to you for the Jews to explicitly and clearly state that Germans are their enemies and Germans need to repair what they did to them? Why don't you ask the Jews to forgive and forget? Why don't you tell the Jews that they're being victims? And what have we seen so that we understand that it's not victimhood? Because of it, the Jewish nation has been empowered. Because of it, they have built economically. Because of it, they've made strides in ensuring and advocating for and defending for the well-being of their people. Because they remembered accurately and they have chosen never to forget. So I hope this, and I'm looking through quickly my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. Malcolm X said, of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. I'll say this in closing. Forgetfulness is a form of death, is literally allowing death of our people. It erases not only our past, but also our roadmap to liberation. Because of the past, you learn how to set the road map to liberation. To remember is to resist. To remember is to organize. To remember is to heal. To remember is to reclaim our global African future. To my fellow WanaUbuntu globally, in Haiti, in the United States, on the continent, in our motherland, we will not let the world tell us to forget. We will not let our colonizers, our enslavers, become our saviors. We will not let their books write our history. We will write our history ourselves. We will save ourselves, and we will always remember See you on Sunday. We'll be doing another collaboration session. Thank you all for your support. We continue to grow slowly but surely because a channel like ours is not popular, and therefore, whatever systems they have put in place to make channels grow quickly will not be enjoying that luxury. And this is a path that we've chosen with that understanding very clearly in our heads, that this will be an organic growth that is mostly supported by our people. You are the ones who are going to subscribe and increase our subscribership, because give today's broadcast, white person comes, they're not subscribing, and I don't expect them to. This is for you, our people. So only you will help our channel grow. And we are okay with that. If we don't grow, if we keep at 2,500, as long as the message is getting to you all, we're good with that. All right. So peace. Let's keep upholding our way of being, Afrocentrism. Let's keep remembering what happened. Let's put in record what is happening today and make sure we hold those who harm us accountable, and make sure that we put in place structures, even if it's one step at a time, even if it takes 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that will hold them accountable and repair and heal our community. Be well, everyone. Kwaheri, kila laheri.